Piercing the corporate veil, part 2. Piercing the corporate veil. What are other factors that a court might look at when it decides whether or not to pierce the corporate veil of a company? Another one is whether or not the company observes corporate formalities, which is to say, when you open a company, you have to file certain incorporation documents with the state. Everybody does that because otherwise you wouldn't have filed a company or you wouldn't have opened a company. But do you have an operating agreement? If you have other shareholders, have there been any meetings? If there have been meetings, are there meeting minutes? Are there bylaws? Have any decisions been made by the company in writing? And so if a company is in existence, but it's not necessarily observing corporate formalities, that tells a court, or at least potentially tells a court, that you guys aren't really a company, or you guys aren't being serious about being a company. If you're not upholding corporate formalities, why should you get the benefits of limited liability? Again, in order to create the limited liability that a company gives you, you have to do what you're supposed to do, which is potentially observe corporate formalities. What other factors? Another factor, and this is a big one, is if you intermingle company assets with your own personal assets. Here's a couple questions. Does your company have its own bank account, or do you put checks made out to your company into your own personal account? Is your company in the name of a separate business? Are the checks made out to your company or to you personally? What happens to those checks? Similarly, on the flip side, your expenses. Is your own personal mortgage being paid out of the company bank account? If that's the case, maybe a court won't want to call it a separate company because you're essentially using it as your own personal piggy bank. Another way that assets could be intermingled is if you have a chain of companies, right? And this happens a lot with construction companies or contractors. They'll have a company that purchases the building, then another company that performs work on the building, and then potentially even another company that's a subcontractor or sells the building, or even another company that leases the building, and maybe another company that's a property manager. And so there's 5 or 6 different companies all doing the same thing of one company. And if it turns out that one of those companies has been intermingling assets with another, it's not unreasonable to say, hey, all these companies are one and the same, and they should all be held liable for the same thing. And so in order to make sure you protect against that, you definitely want to meet with an attorney or have some real professional advice on how to separate those companies and how to separate those assets and liabilities in a way that somebody can't come back tomorrow and say, well, all these companies should be held liable together.